China's envoy to the United Nations has called for an early release of the results of the investigation into the Nord Stream gas pipeline explosion. The Nord Stream pipelines transporting natural gas from Russia to European markets were ruptured a year ago. The incident took place in a series of explosions underneath the Baltic Sea near Sweden and Denmark. 1 year after the attack, investigations by Sweden, Denmark and Germany, which excluded Russia of course, are still dragging on, yielding no substantive results. China has launched a new remote sensing satellite into space from the WION Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. The satellite, named WION 3304, was launched by a Long March 4C carrier rocket. The new remote sensing satellite will reportedly be used for scientific experiments, land resource surveys, crop yield estimation and disaster prevention and relief. Now, this was the 489th flight mission of the Long March series carrier rockets. Japan will scrutinize Russia's announcement of possibly joining China in banning Japanese seafood imports. Now, Japan started releasing the water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the ocean last month, drawing strong criticism from China. Now, China imposed a blanket ban on all aquatic imports from Japan in retaliation of the water release. Meanwhile, Japan has said that criticism from Russia and China is unsupported by scientific evidence. US President Joe Biden became the first US president to join the picket line with striking auto workers in Michigan, backing their call for a 40% pay hike. Biden expressed that the UAW workers deserve raises and other concessions that they are seeking. Now, Biden's visit comes a day after his Republican presidential rival Donald Trump is expected to speak to the auto workers. Now, the rare back-to-back events highlight the importance of union support in the upcoming 2024 presidential election, despite concerns that a prolonged strike could undermine the economy. Biden encouraged workers to keep fighting for better wages. Drone footage has now emerged that shows dozens of migrants congregated along the Rio Grande shore in Eagle Pass. Now, this follows the recent installation of razor wire on the riverbank by Texas National Guard, barricading the migrants' access to the United States. With groups of migrants as large as thousands to 2,000 attempting to cross into the US. Now, the Border Patrol are actively engaged in trying to manage the influx. Just last week, Texas officials signed an emergency declaration to seek funding for additional services. The dramatic surge of migrants along the US southern border marks a turning point after illegal migration had plummeted in recent months. In a setback for former US President Donald Trump, a New York court has ruled that Trump, along with his sons Eric and Don, committed fraud. The judge ruled that both the father and sons committed fraud by inflating the value of the real estate and financial assets of the Trump organization. For years, the court also revoked the business licenses that allowed the Trump organization to operate some of its New York properties. The Attorney General also has sought $250 million in damages. The ruling comes ahead of the trial in the civil case due to begin next Monday. The non-jury trial is scheduled to begin on 2nd October and last until December. Days after praising a Nazi soldier, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons lower chamber, Anthony Rota, has resigned. Now, Rota told legislators he had made a mistake by inviting the 98-year-old Nazi-linked soldier in the House, honoring Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The parliament then gave a standing ovation to Yaroslav Hunka after Rota heaped praise on the Nazi soldier. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, was also seen clapping for the war veteran. As soon as the incident gained attention and received flack, Trudeau called the incident embarrassing. Meanwhile, Canada's main opposition candidate and leader of the Conservative Party of Canada has called the incident a big diplomatic embarrassment for the country. Now, Russia's most prominent opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, has lost his appeal against a 19-year prison term in a maximum security jail on extremism charges. The latest sentence was imposed on August 4th after Navalny was convicted on 6 charges related to alleged extremist activity, all of which he has denied. Now, his appeal was rejected by a Moscow judge after a hearing in which Navalny took part by video link. The proceedings were closed to the media, despite protests from Navalny and his lawyers. Amid the ongoing diplomatic struggle with Canada, India has gone into an override mode in its bid to crack down against Khalistani terrorists and their sympathizers in the country. The National Investigation Agency has launched a major crackdown on the Khalistani gangster nexus, conducting raids at 51 locations across multiple Indian states. Now, one gangster has also been detained, barely 3 days after sizzling multiple Khalistani terrorist-owned properties in India's state of Punjab. The country's premier anti-terror agency has stepped up its clampdown. Now, raids are reportedly on to nab hawala operators and logistic coordinators of gangsters who have links with Khalistan in 6 Indian states. Locals in Imphal city of India's Manipur state staged a protest on Tuesday after pictures of bodies of 2 teenage students surfaced. Now, according to the police, at least 34 students, including girls, were injured in clashes with security forces. The murder of the teenage students who went missing at the height of the ethnic violence in July has triggered fresh tensions in the state. Hundreds of students from different schools spilled onto the streets of Imphal to protest against the murder of 2 teenage students from the Meitei community. Now, as the demonstrators tried to march towards Manipur Chief Minister's residence, they were intercepted by security forces. Authorities fired tear gas, shells and smoke bombs to disperse the crowd. Now, Kosovo Serbs held a vigil to mourn the death of 3 men killed during a shootout between armed militants and police. The main political party representing Serbs in northern Kosovo, Serblist, declared 3 days of mourning for those killed during the incident on Sunday. Police recaptured the monastery late on Sunday after 3 attackers and 1 police officer were killed. No group has come forward to claim responsibility for the attack or explain the motives of the gunmen. Kosovo has accused Serbia of backing the armed militants. However, Serbia says that Kosovo is to blame for mistreating residents in the Serb majority area. As the UN Security Council met for its quarterly meeting on the situation in Afghanistan, the rights of women and girls took center stage. Experts urged the international community to officially recognize the gender apartheid in Afghanistan amid the escalating restrictions imposed on women and girls by the Taliban regime. Now, the members of the council unanimously condemned the treatment of women and girls in Afghanistan, but stopped short of using the word apartheid to describe it. However, representatives from several states, including China, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States, all called for a reversal of the Taliban restrictions on women and girls. More than 100 people were killed and 150 injured in a fire at a wedding party in Hamdaniya district in Iraq's province. Now, this incident has left civil defense searching the charred skeleton of a building for survivors into the early hours of Wednesday. The fire ripped through a large event hall in the northeastern region after fireworks were lit during the celebrations. In the aftermath, firefighters clambered over the charred wreckage of the building, shining lights over smoldering ruins. Preliminary information indicated that the building was made of highly flammable construction materials, contributing to its rapid collapse. The first Saudi ambassador to Palestine has arrived in the West Bank city of Ramallah. His arrival, which marks the first time Saudi Arabia has sent a delegation to the West Bank in 3 decades. Now, the ambassador presented his credentials to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas at the presidency headquarters. This is being perceived as a historic milestone amid US-led efforts to forge diplomatic ties between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. However, Riyadh has repeatedly stated that it will adhere to the Arab League's position of not having relations with Israel until the Palestinian crisis is completely resolved. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has expressed that a land corridor connecting Turkey to Azerbaijan will be built as soon as possible. Now, this comes after Azerbaijani forces took the contested region of Nagorno-Karabakh in a lightning military campaign just last week. Speaking after a cabinet meeting, the Turkey president said that his country would look to partner with Iran to complete the trade corridor. Now, the corridor aims to give Baku unimpeded access to the Azeri enclave through Armenia. Now, both Turkey and Azerbaijan have been calling for its implementation since the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War that started in 2020. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been moved to a new jail with better facilities near the capital city. Now, this comes following a court order which demanded better security for the PTI chief. About a dozen supporters gathered outside the jail throwing rose petals and chanting as a convoy of police cars and armoured vehicles arrived. Khan was jailed in August in connection with a corruption case. A court suspended his prison term weeks later. However, a prior order for him to be remanded in custody in a case related to charges of leaking state secrets case prevented his release. Khan's legal team had argued that the jail was more appropriate for a former prime minister. Morocco's ambassador to the United Nations, Omar Hilale, thanked world leaders for their support following the devastating earthquake that struck his country earlier this month. In a speech to the Assembly, The ambassador also slammed neighboring Algeria over the situation in the Western Sahara. Algeria broke off diplomatic ties with Morocco 2 years ago, and that was over the conflict in which the Polisario Front seeks independence from Morocco. The Western Sahara issue is at the heart of increased friction between Morocco and Algeria, whose borders have been closed since 1994. Flood victims in Greece's plain are bracing for more rain as they continue to reel from the impact of Storm Daniel earlier this month. Authorities have now sent warnings over the latest storm, Elias, that is expected to bring more rains to the region over the next 2 days. Now, previously, 16 died and 1 person is still missing after floods swept through cities and villages in central Greece. Now, hundreds of residents were airlifted or rescued with lifeboats. Many have not returned to their homes yet. Crops were destroyed and tens of thousands of animals drowned in this agricultural heartland. Thai residents waded through floodwater at a street market yesterday as cars struggled to drive through flooded roads in Bangkok. Eyewitness footage showed water reaching pedestrians' knees as they used umbrellas to combat heavy rains in the district. The National Meteorological Agency has forecast that heavy rains will continue for the rest of the week in the Thai capital. Some market updates. Foreign institutional investors have sold about $1.6 billion in Indian equities in September. Now, this is the most since January of this year. This trend was driven by elevated valuations in the domestic market and negative global cues, according to reports. Now, the Sensex and Nifty indexes gained about 12% each since April, as foreign investors bought about $17 billion worth of shares on improved Indian macroeconomic conditions. However, analysts are now raising concerns about elevated valuations resulting from this rally. The Indian rupee is nearing an all-time low again due to month-end dollar demand, increasing crude oil prices and ongoing capital outflows from foreign institutional investors in the equity market. This is despite last week's gains prompted by India's inclusion in the JP Morgan Bond Index. The US dollar has gained in value against a basket of other currencies, including the rupee. This as the US Fed has hinted at elevated interest rates for longer.